are ready to get started. So appreciate everybody coming to this the webinar. What we're talking about today is our research credit, RCM software module, and for another housekeeping thing, just to make sure that we're our required Circular 230 notice. The IRS regulations require that we inform you that anything that we kind of go through this presentation won't be used for avoiding penalties. And I think you guys can kind of read that through there. Then so before we kind of show you because what I want to show you today is a demo. So I know if you guys have received the postcard or kind of seen the PDF slide of what we're going to cover is, we're talking about why do I need better documentation in terms of, I think a lot of us have seen the recent UTP reporting requirements that are out there, the uncertain tax positions, and I will tell you that if I was the IRS, what I would do with that information as it's coming into my system is I would then pick my top 5 issues that I see for taxpayers, and I would focus in on those. And I'll tell you, just from experience, transfer pricing, foreign tax credits, and R&D credits. Those are going to be at the top of the list for most companies that are there. So why do I need better documentation? I think that's, if the IRS is going to focus their efforts on it, better documentation is something that how can I get it without spending a ton on resources or fees? I think we'll show you some of the things, and obviously further discussions can kind of give you some more insight in terms of how we price and structure things. And what can we do to help with the research credit? One of the things I hope to show is that you want to spend less time gathering the data and more time analyzing it. Make sure it's the right data. Make sure my information is good, qualified activities, good, qualified detail. And then when and how can I receive a more detailed demo? So the demo itself, what we're going to show you, there's a lot of features and functions, and we'll kind of go through high level on those in a second, is showing the flexibility. Is we want to give you a sense of what we can do in the different variations. Everybody's business is different. Everybody's industry has some different, different requirements and things that are needed. So not everybody's site or everybody's module is going to look the same. And we have other clients. I mean, you would look at one and you'd look at another, and they're very different because of just the companies in terms of systems, industry process. The other example I want to show is just an example of getting to projects. I know it is the IRS today, if some have been through audits, can kind of know that they always harp on, we want to see it by business component, we want to see it by project, but most companies don't keep it to that way. They keep it to the cost center. So show you an example of maybe how to get to projects. And then thirdly, giving an example of the IRS view. One of the things we've done through audits, working with our clients, is giving the IRS access to pieces of information. And what that allows us to do is, one is kind of, feed them the pieces of information, obviously electronically, so it gets rid of the back and forth, hey, let's hand you this and hand you that. If we all kind of get to one place, we're all looking at the same thing together, and then you also can have the ability to know that, what the IRS is looking at, or in terms of how much time they're actually spending on it. So it gives you a position of strength to, at the end of the day, negotiate with them and saying, hey, we have the good stuff, and you kind of know where they're at. This isn't a silver bullet. It's not going to solve, all your problems for the research credit. You still need to spend time with people and documentation. I don't think that's ever going to go away because of just the activities and the nature of the projects. What we're trying to do is eliminate some of the some of the data gathering time. You still need to spend time reviewing documentation, interviewing if necessary. And that really kind of, again, gets back to the purpose of this all, is just eliminate the time and energy to gather the data. It's something that you want to spend your time, either internal resources or external money for us to spend more time on the value analysis. You don't want, to have resources spent on just gathering the data, just spending a lot of time just figuring out what's out there and then trying to get it. So at the end of the day, you hope to then cut the cost either in terms of time spent, resources. So let me get into, and hold on, there's a couple other people joining, so I will get them accepted. So if you've just joined us, if you're getting on the audio bridge, we are just kind of getting started. So what I'm going to do is all right, just joined us. We're just kind of into the. All right, so this is the module. This is the excuse me. This is the software. Before I kind of go into the different kind of examples I wanted to show you, this is an example of a home page, and what we mean by a home page is it's browser based, so we're not loading some software onto your servers where you have to get IT involved and have to get them to all get involved in the project, because sometimes IT resources are pretty limited. And one of the things that backing up for 1 second is that CFO Services uses this for all of our clients internally. So the whole thought was as well, it helps us to become more efficient on our projects and providing professional services. So we thought, it could offer as a benefit to clients who want to differently than the traditional model. So we kind of were offering this out and have been offering it out for a while now. So all of our clients, in some form of fashion, again, it's not going to look the same for everybody. And the demo itself, just to kind of give everybody a basis of how this one's structured, this is a demo that excuse me, that we're looking at cost centers, and in those cost centers we have people, and in those cost centers we also have projects. And what we're doing is allocating people to projects and providing some documentation. That's how this one's based. We might have a more project-oriented based version. There might be one where instead of just having cost centers, you might have sites, business units, or companies above those cost centers and need to kind of filter down through that information. Or you might have a mixture of both. We've worked with those different scenarios that I've kind of mentioned. But on the home page, one of the things that we like to do is, kind of first off is project management. When you work with us, we like to be upfront of what we're doing. If we're out there, having meetings or doing interviews or keeping track of stuff, requesting stuff, we like to keep that in kind of at a forefront for all of us to work together. So, milestones on the project. If we have stuff that we're requesting from the business units or the locations or people, that we have that are set out there, and then if there's follow-up or things, we can kind of keep a myriad of lists and things tracked as we work on the project. We like to do that because it helps us internally to kind of manage our own resources. The other thing that's kind of below that is we can put charts and graphs and things to kind of visually demonstrate what's going on. You'll see, again, we're kind of, this demo is set up for tracking to cost centers, and we see that they're out of the 700 some odd cost centers, that we're still outstanding, 26 of them that haven't completed their information. You'll kind of see what I mean with complete. I'll kind of go over to the side here with the pie chart. I think that makes sense for everybody in terms of supplies and contract research. Again, this page we can, we put anything and anything on any page really in terms of what information. It's really more of preference for the internal management. This page is really used for the internal tax resources, tax department. And then, one of the other things to kind of demonstrate is, top 10 projects. We kind of list here is, we kind of allocated to projects, essentially can qualify to projects. So let's list the top 10. Those would be ones we definitely want to focus on, definitely want to spend our time to do this. And because we know the IRS is going to focus their efforts on that, so we'd want to make sure that we know what those are. And one of the good things is that this information will update as information is inputted into the system. And then the other thing that we like to look at, just for for the demo purposes, is the bottom 10 cost centers. And what I mean here is that we can still have cost center QREs, and we want to look at the ones that are different from last year. Well, if we have a cost center that's off, I think one was showing $3 million, well, we probably want to dig into that and find out. And again, the whole purpose of it all is traditionally is you spend a lot of time gathering all this data, and then at the end, all of a sudden you realize, you know what, I've got all these cost centers that are kind of off from last year, and I don't know the reasons why. Is it because I just got people didn't understand what qualifies, or people entered the wrong information? Well, this can help to be a little more proactive. And let me just go through, before we kind of get through the examples I wanted to show you, features and functions of everything else. One of the things is I'm not showing every feature and function that's out here today. Usually, typically, our more detailed demonstration is a couple hours, because people want to just kind of click through everything and just show the whole progression of stuff, and even kind of build some on-the-fly reports as we're sitting there. So we're trying to just show a couple key pieces, but to kind of go through the features and functions, you'll see here really what this features and functions is really kind of everything that's on the left in that quick launch bar, just to kind of show you everything that's all of them, is, excuse me. So updating information, this is where we would either update the information from last year in terms of employees, in terms of cost centers, in terms of general ledger, in terms of companies, all the financial information, classifying that data in terms of what type of cost centers. Are they direct, support, supervisory? Are they wages, supplies, contract research accounts, other information that's in there, the ability for to enter detail, and check off the data. I'll kind of scroll down a little bit more. Identify users, and then kind of classify or assign those users to either groupings, if it's company, if it's cost center, if it's project. The communication section. When we log in as an SME, and I'll show you that next, is one of the things we like to put out there is a help desk. Just as you'd seen it as a normal place or website, I guess, they have help desks, and it's a place where if you log in, you say, what, I have a question on, would this type of thing qualify, or I'm having a problem with something in the system, they can post it out to the help desk, and that'll ping either us at CFO Services, or can ping the internal, resources at the company if it's, like and frequently asked questions, and providing content for the individuals on frequently asked questions that are out there. And the other thing, is webinars. One of the things that we like to do when we first work with our clients is we like to have webinars to bring SMEs out to those webinars and then we can kind of show them, as we're kind of shown here with the demo, but just for their section, what to complete. And then we record those webinars, similar to what we're doing today, and provide those out in a link so they can then come back and re-listen to those if they need to understand what was going on. Or if we need to do more of a webinar that's based on, what qualifies for the credit or what type of activities are we talking about, those can also be provided and posted out there as well. And then, the communication library in auto communications as a system sends and receives email. And then kind of scroll down a little bit with, initiating the process. So we've classified companies and SMEs. Now we want to their link and log in and get them started. And then the data management is as, the people are entering information through the organization, through the company, the SMEs, the engineers. We're going to review things, review cost center status. That's checking, where's everybody at with completing their information or projects. As well as some other data checks. We try to put as much checks and balances in there, but you still want to just double check sometimes and things that are there. Then, updating the calculation, reports. I'll kind of, a couple things. With reports, these are kind of some standard reports that we know that people like to look at. But reports are kind of I guess they're pretty easy for us to do. So clients always like some different style reports or different types of information depending on gathering. So those things we kind of work with at the forefront of what do you want to see. We post those out there and put them out there. And then the IRS view, I'll show you that in more detail. And then documents. If we're doing reports, if we're doing things that we'll post out there into those libraries. So let me scroll back up, and then I will go in, log in as an SME. And I'll kind of pause right there, just kind of, let me get a... I don't think... All right, so this page is the demonstration again of logging in as a cost center SME, and for hopefully everybody understands when I say SME, subject matter expert, and we're talking about cost centers that, again, we're talking about this is kind of set up like a cost center base. So I have 3 cost centers assigned to me: engineering and development, operational excellence, and test lab. And you can see different from our home page, which the home page is just for CFO Services and the internal tax department kind of working together, is we really thin down what they really need to get into. They really just need to get into help and questions, frequently asked questions, the webinars, and then my home page is the page we're looking at. So if we're looking at, say, engineering and development, this is the cost center. For this version of the page, what we're having them do is 3 steps. Review add projects, allocate employees to projects, and then review the cost center allocation of those people to those projects. This is one example. We'll show you another example next, but I just want to kind of show you something. So if we're working with this engineering development and we review add projects, that screen you can see that this department, again, this is demo data, so just kind of use, they don't really have projects per se. They really just have 2 kind of, these would be more non-qualified projects, but you'll see on the right the information that we want them to provide for those projects. And these questions, obviously, and the format of them can be tailored and flexible. One of the things I'll stress again is, flexibility of our system is inherent in the platform that we're using. Flexibility is kind of built in. It's something that it's there for, and that's why we use it internally, is because all our clients are different, and if we weren't flexible, it would just be very, it just wouldn't be So they can kind of complete that project information, add new projects, remove old projects. This would be where if I'm looking at last year's projects, I probably could remove some. One of the things that we always try to do for the next year when we roll over is, for a cost center, we'd roll over the projects that they had last year, clear out the allocation data, and then they would be able to update, because sometimes projects do roll over. They don't just always happen in 1 year. And then if we want to allocate an employee to the projects, so you can see there's only one person. Well, I'll show you another one that has a lot of people. You can see their time and do is, we'll edit. Fields and forms are, just for this demo. So that. Well, with the lag, so I don't think that's pull up the list of departments that are in for that cost center, so it's not pulling all projects across the whole company. All right, so go back to the home page. So he's updated, allocated his people. I'll show you. Oops, let me get back. And actually, I'll show you one that has a lot of people, just for. A lot of people in there. You see it kind of shows up on Rev Alberts. I'll click on somebody. Their information will show up next, and obviously they update and enter the information. So again, all demo data, just trying to show you the how to work through it. And one of the things we try to do when we have people from the company or the SMEs log in and complete information, we want to make it as simple as possible. We don't want 20 steps for them to go through in trying to provide us. They can look at it somewhat intuitively, say, okay, I understand what I need to do, and I can go do it. And then lastly, viewing the data. So we saw this, Ron Ackerman, he kind of had his information there. That one you can see it says 32, 38 through 60. And there, again, for their review. If the SME wanted to print that out, they can go print it out. You can see all the projects that everybody's. And apologize for scrolling. I was just kind of scrolling down and scrolling back up, and I know it's the lag sometimes in just the webinar itself. Hopefully it's not. Back to the home page. And then lastly, we'll ask them is, as they're completing the information, is check off. As we had that bar graph on the home page, that's what it's showing us. So as we check off these cost centers, or people check off that they're done, it'll show the progress on that home page, and we'll see how. So that's one example. And I wanted to kind of demonstrate a version of the flexibility is that, we've asked this SME to do 3 things. Now, if we have another version that some of our clients like to do is go to the other page. It'll kind of look very similar. You actually, unless you kind of saw it flash, you might not even know there's a difference, but instead of having 3 steps before, now we have 5 steps. And the 2 additional steps are now step 1 and step 4. So, you know, they still review add projects, allocate employees to projects, and then also view the cost center allocation. I got to make sure but we also ask them to update a description for the cost center. This might be something that, you know, we ask more or less information. So let's go into test lab, since we haven't gone into that one yet. Go in there and we'll type it. We can ask more questions, less questions, more like when we had the project report and adding questions on the project. But this is an example of just a basic description. If we have a description from last year or a description from HR that we want to use, post that as well. That, and then updating the description, we've already went through reviewing and adding projects. We've went through allocating employees to those projects, same kind of screens. And then I wanted to show you, so now we talked about at the beginning, why do I need better documentation? And one of the things that makes better documentation is not just providing the qualified expenses and the payroll, is getting the contemporaneous documentation on projects and activities, and that's engineering type documents, scope documents, test reports, meeting minutes. I mean, kind of the things that those types of resources or people are creating through their process. So the way this version, what we do is we ask them to, actually let's go back to operational excellence. This operational excellence, this cost center, there's a lot more projects that are there. And we ask them to upload documentation by project. So this parking meter phase number 5, this demo project that we have. The details, again, just kind of reminding them of what the project is. We can see what documentation is already uploaded for that project, and we want to upload some more documentation. Browse like a normal browser, if that's what it's called. Okay, and title to it, we'll just call this a scope. The project is already kind of assigned to it. We like to do some of those things so then it gets categorized right and gets to the right project. That kind of goes back to the project details. You'll see the project documentation. Now, again, trying to keep it simple. That's really what we, at the end of the day, having more than 5 steps might be a little much. There might be some other things that are more company specific that we get in terms of project documentation or processes or questions that we ask, but trying to keep it to 5 steps. So, so an engineer who has that one engineer for operational excellence, or myself as that SME, I'm going to spend a little more time than the person that doesn't have a lot of people. But one of the other things that I will kind of go back to, just get back on the is we try to capture the information a little more contemporaneously in terms of allocating people's time. So you see, in this version, we have it by quarter. Well, some of our clients like to actually have people in the actual year provide their information on a quarterly basis. So they can come in, log in, update any new projects, add some new projects. They might not complete all the details on the projects yet, but at least they can allocate people's time to those projects each quarter. So that by the end of the year, they might have spent 20 minutes, each quarter kind of entering the information. So at the end, they've, spent 60 to 80 minutes. But it's a lot more detailed, and you don't have to spend another, 6-7 months trying to go send them emails, send them a, survey, send them a feature, send them a spreadsheet. They send it all back in different formats. They send you all these documents. You got to organize them, upload them, get them into the system. How do you, that kind of gets a little messy. What we try to do is get the information into the system as close as possible and get it organized through the system so you spend less time, again, gathering the data and more time on the value analysis. So you can have them go into here on a quarterly basis and enter that information at a quasi, I'll use that word quasi, time tracking system. And I'll use that as a very loose term because I know that kind of what some folks think about that. So with quarters. So then lastly, we kind of talked about the home page. We talked about that's, for the tax department, internal resource. We talked about the features and functions. Talk about 2 different versions of SMEs logging in. This is again, they're only going to see what's on this page. They're not going to see what's on the home page and all that detail that we have in there. Lastly, is we wanted to go into the IRS view. Okay, so we have been, I guess I will say that CFO Services feels they've been pretty successful working with the IRS with some type of IRS view on the system. Does it always look exactly like this page that we're looking at now? No, not necessarily, but it's to some degree or fashion. One of the things that we have found is that we can then know what they're looking at in terms of how much time they're spending looking at those things. And if we can know that, then we can kind of really sit back and say, okay, when they say something doesn't qualify or they have issues with something, we really know how much research that they've done on their end, rather than just throw out something for throwing out sake. So again, it puts you in a position of strength to negotiate at the end of the day your claim, or decide, okay, what do I do with this during audit? Because the more information we can have under audit, the more information and data we can gather in that, the better. So even more thinned down than what the SMEs saw, all the IRS is seeing is the project listing. That's the page that we're on. We also posted a mandatory IDR response. Maybe we post all the IDRs that they submitted out here as just kind of a check to show, here's all the IDRs we submitted, and any responses that we put out onto the site, so they'd have to go get them out there instead of, the back and forth different versions floating around. So this is kind of an example of what we have felt that the IRS would view as kind of the format. And not saying that, our allocation process by quarter is exactly right, but one of the things that we find in our audit is if you give them a project list, because they just gravitate to that, you give them a project list with QREs, 9 times out of 10, your allocation is not really in discussion most of the times. They just want to talk about the projects that you have dollars to. Well, we give them projects. We give them the purpose of the project. We give them, excuse me, let me use my pointer again, sorry. I was pointing at my screen. Give them a purpose. We give them the description. And again, this is demo content, but obviously, you'd want a good description of those projects. Well, one of the things as CFO Services or the tax department might say, these top 10 projects, and I'm going to kind of scroll down here, those descriptions look pretty good. But as I scroll down, I notice that they start getting thinner and thinner and thinner. Well, I know that the IRS is going to look at the top 10, right? I know I have to put my effort in there, but you know what? If we don't have anything, as we kind of see here, for some of these projects of why they qualify, then they're just going to kind of knock those out right away. So it gives you
a good sense to put a good package together, but it also helps you focus your efforts. Because if you have a lot of good documentation out there for a good group of projects, well, there's no need to spend a lot of time, making those, even better. Spend the time on trying to clean up everything else. So again, trying to focus our efforts on what do we analyze and how do we provide that value to our clients in what. So I'll scroll back up to the top. I think it was that parking meter phase 5 project. And I'll just show you kind of an example of what we would show them. So this would be considered kind of a traditional project report. I'll kind of say that. So we're showing them the project, the purpose of the project, again, the qualified description of the project, the wages, supplies, and contract research associated with that project, the details. There could be more or less in terms of questions. Those that's basically coming from that project details form that we had when the SMEs filled out. So again, what I come back to is that we don't have to put it into some type of format. You get back into the traditional sense of we send an email out, they provide it in a Word document, then I got to take all the Word documents, put them all into one document or Excel spreadsheet or something, and then I get into one place I can look at it, and then I've got to get it presented for the IRS. Well, the SMEs entered it. There was nobody touched it along the way, so we didn't spend kind of valuable time just, massaging the data to make it look nice. We kind of can present it right away, obviously with some, review of it all. And then you can see the documentation that we uploaded. Obviously there's going to be review before it goes to the IRS, but again, that's a step in the process. But we don't have to worry about getting the data assigned or getting it, presented nice. With the IRS, presentation matters. I mean, just like anything else, if you come with a box of papers, that's a little different than if you come with something that's a little more put together. They appreciate that. So you have, you can see the people that are allocated to that. And then I'll just headphone one again. So back to the project list. One of the things that we like to do, and this is not always necessary on every audit, but we like to do this as our quality control check just internally when we work with our clients on the R&D credit. Mandatory IDR, and if you haven't seen the mandatory IDR, we can get you a copy. It's on the irs.gov website. It's not a hidden document that's you only see if you're under audit. 18 questions. I'll scroll down a little bit to kind of flag again in terms of the webinar. But scroll back up, and we like to answer those questions at least to know that, hey, we know that it might not come up, the IDR might not be given to us, but we're seeing original year audits that they're asking the similar type questions. They might not all 18 questions, not 18 questions have multiple parts, but they ask a lot of similar type questions. So it's a good way to kind of check from a quality control standpoint, do we have that? But if we have to provide that to the IRS, we can provide them in kind of a format that it's electronic, that we give it to them. And if they want it, they can more than happy to print out anything that they can see. So they can still get it in hard copy, but we'll deliver it to them in electronic copy, again, giving us a little more insight in terms of how they're interacting with us during the audit. So I think that is, where we. So that is kind of what I wanted to show you. I will. In terms of the homepage, which showed you features and functions, showed you a couple examples of how SMEs would interact with the system. There's many different ways, again, trying to stress the flexibility. And I'll actually go back to our presentation. I just got 2 or 3 more slides. Again, what we're trying to show you is just pieces of it. There's more features and functions, I think, that we've already as we're kind of going through these last slides, if you guys do have questions you want to post either on the chat that's kind of to our left here, or chime in. Well, our next slide is really what's the next steps. Is you might say, hey, I'm kind of interested in checking this out, but I want to kind of see a little bit more of it. Well, we can set up a more one-on-one demo. Sit down, go through. I mean, as I said before, let you touch and feel, click, and basically kind of go through it. We like to do that. We can get back on the webinar. We even come out live and spend some. Sometimes we spend even a half a day going through it because we can just go through a lot of it. Because the other thing we like to go through is, excuse me, your processes. How do you capture the R&D credit now? Have people, provided some communication upwards into the tax department or the tax resources that, hey, if we could do it this way, or if you gave us something that we could use that's a little more formalized or standardized or to that regards, we can get there. And then, what type of systems do you have? What type of, general ledger? Are we using Oracle? Are we using, other type of program that we're, capturing our financial data that we can kind of tap? And then, so after that kind of more detailed demo, we'll return back with, more of a kind of a mock-up and a pricing. And I think Dan has a. Dan kind of asks who makes the determination that activities qualify, meets the 4-part test. Now, we have clients that we like to, in terms of CFO Services, working with either the engineers or if we have the project data. In the demo that we have out there now, the project data is qualified, non-qualified by either the internal tax department or CFO Services. But there also going to be the opportunity for the SMEs at the location to check qualified, non-qualified. Now there's goods and bads with both. One of the things that you have with the SMEs checking qualified, non-qualified is they don't deal with this as much as the internal tax resources or CFO Services does. So, their determination might be a little bit different than that. And at the end of the day, dealing with the IRS in an audit, if you present qualified projects, depending on, I guess, who you get, agent, engineer, technical advisor, sometimes they're not concerned with who makes the qualification, more of what qualifies and does it sound qualified. So maybe that kind of answers your question, Dan. I don't know if it does or not, or if you want me. And again, it's flexible. We can put it, the point of qualification, just within the internal tax, or put it with the folks out in the operations. It's all possible either way. It's just how do you, again, getting back to what is the process now. Do we want to mimic that? Do we want to change it? Do we want to make it better? So does that answer your question? I think hopefully I answered your question there, Dan. Excellent. Then back to kind of the slide is we want to return back with folks on a mock-up. And what we'd like to do is you kind of give us, here's what I use, here's the type of people. I might have business units that people have to log in and assign people to different departments. You're probably not going to look at every single cost center that's out there, like accounting, human resources. Those will definitely classify those off and give you a better mock-up. basically kind of like we showed you here with the demo today, give you a more, company-specific demo. It's not going to say CFO Services on it. It's going to have your company logo. So we want to make it look as internal to your company as possible, because then people feel comfortable with, hey, this is not just, we're not just, like an outside survey company and they're just, collecting all this data. They know that, hey, this is the tax department. Hey, they're collecting this information, connected with us. So we want to make sure that it does that. And then pricing. Kind of talk a little bit about pricing. If you guys, in terms of wanting some more detail on that, we can kind of go through that when we go through a more detailed demo one-on-one. We're not a software company. For those who may not know or don't know, CFO Services is, professional firm, and what we focus on, the group that I have is research credits. We work with clients on the research credit, federal research credit, state research credits, and so first and foremost, we are those types of people. So we're always focusing on helping our clients getting the right documentation, analyzing that documentation, making sure we're getting all the expenses that are out there that are necessary, and what we've as I talked about at the beginning, is we're offering this as, hey, it's helping us internally. It probably will help our clients as well, in terms of, again, getting to a better state of using my resources, using my fee CFO Services, because because we do have quality people that are out there, so you kind of want to have the best of both worlds. So we're kind of pricing it as a software as a service. The second bullet point, we don't charge for customization. And I know there's others that are out there that have similar things, and that charge a lot to customize stuff. Like I showed you those 2 pages of different SME logins. Well, you'd get charged, a pretty good price for that. We don't charge for that. So if you say, hey, I want these reports, I want to kind of set it up this way, that's just part of the value add of using us, and also supporting of the system. We kind of put that all together and also include a bank of hours, come up with a package for it to say, okay, here's something that we're working together with the internal tax resource. We get some bank of professional hours, maybe to review projects, qualify projects, review the documentation. We're also supporting that system, and making sure they have problems with their login and things like that. That's, that people can. So that kind of talks about the next steps. I guess I will there. And it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate everybody attending. I think if you, we're going to try to post this out there onto our website. We'll send a thank you email through our webinar list to kind of let everybody know that it's out there. Appreciate everybody attending. We're going to try to do another webinar in July, probably on state credits, more or less, maybe on what we're seeing with audits, and then UTP. So appreciate everybody logging in. Hopefully that was helpful and gave you some insight in terms of what we do some more, and a better sense of everything that can software in our services. So appreciate it. See you guys next time.